Hi, welcome back to my channel. Last week I gave you a tour of a sketchbook, and I mentioned that I have my dissertation in sketchbooks. These are the 5 sketchbooks of my dissertation. And what I thought I would do is do a tour each week of one of the books. They're all slightly different and they all have a purpose to them. One of the things about dissertations that, for those people who don't know, and that's most people because who writes this, is that dissertations have a specific structure, and that's a 5-chapter dissertation. And so today I want to look at chapter 1, and chapter 1 is really the kind of the statement of the problem. So what am I going to study? So this is just sort of a free-form piece that talks about a lot of things. On the front, I have a picture of John Dewey, because a lot of what I was basing my theory on was based in John Dewey. And this book is really just sort of almost just a blast of information. I have a number of different styles or different approaches. This is kind of a fun way to use up a lot of pages. And so there's like page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. I'll go into some of these later on in a tutorial. But this really just gives me sort of a background of what I was doing, how I was teaching, some of the big ideas that I was kind of wanting to cover, making meaning, sketchbooks, and teaching, those 3 major kind of ideas. And what I really wanted to know about in our sketches was, where did we come from, and where do we want to be as far as teaching sketchbooks in classrooms? So I think oftentimes of my ideas as being like a basket full of, rounding up cats. And so here's my basket with little meows in it. This is how I see myself oftentimes, just this kind of fire hose of words flying out. I really love this page. It's got little kind of collage pieces of text here, and then the fire hose just blasting out. On each of these pages, I have text and references on this part that I won't go into. This right here is about, our experience and how we might plan, how our experience informs our teaching. I love this picture. This is sorry, my cat's going to add in some, going to add in some stuff. This is a practice target. I love crows, and crows are going to be a recurring theme in all of these books, but I love this one. These are little circles from page protectors, some stenciling, and some of these pages are little torn out pages here, some collage. Just want to kind of point out a few things. There's kind of a debunked theory, but I had really been interested in this idea that we have logic and creativity. The left side of the brain is a very structured and ordered, and the right side is more of a free flow kind of feel. And I think that these things exist simultaneously and kind of feed each other. For example, for me, for sketchbooks, I have a very systematic way of working through them, and yet every page is a creative kind of process. This is actually an image that I added in here. This whole page was kind of glued in and added in from when I did I took my research study, and I took my students out into the field, and we went to a park in Indianapolis and painted from the sculptures there. This is my hand traced, and then some text around it. The other thing that I was very interested in is how do we build community within our classrooms through sketchbooks. This is actually a leaf. Looks like it's getting a little loose there. It's, I can't remember what kind this is. It'll come to me later. But to glue this down, to keep a leaf sealed in there, you have to use like a wax medium so that it remains a little flexible. Here's some little tiny bugs. We worked outside a lot, so I wanted to kind of capture that feeling. My research study, they worked outside. This is not a picture, I think it says, or maybe this is not a landscape. What I did on this is trace my hand very quickly. I'm going to lay it down, trace my hand, and then look at it and paint it here. This is kind of a play on Magritte's. This is not a pipe. This is not a landscape. A landscape is actually there, but what we're doing is creating illusions. This is some of my background, kind of a story of when I was a child, and one of my first experiences with art and using art pencils. And we were drawing little pieces of redwood trees. And what I loved about my teacher, she had like an 8-foot tall paper mache giraffe in her living room, which I just was so impressed with that. And again, part of this is talking about, I'm talking about leaf collections here, I think. So some of these are real leaves. Let's see, no, just this one, just that one. The rest of these are painted, and these are learning about classifying leaves. That's a typical Indiana, I think it's a 7th grade project where you have to do a leaf collection. And part of that is that there's several places in Indianapolis where I did my study that have labeled trees, Crown Hill Cemetery being one of those. And so the trees actually have labels, and it facilitates that project for students as well. And again, I'm going to show a number of birds. There's going to be bird themes through this. There's going to be a series of themes. This book has the least amount of themes. It's kind of the introduction with a wild variety of things. Kind of got a little crazy, in fact. And so I've got these kind of stripes, but I'm talking about here making meaning. I hate this page. It is so garish. I hate these colors. But, you know, part of what we do in our sketchbooks is experiment. And so this one, even though I dislike it quite a bit, you know, you got to leave that in there, because the sketchbook itself is a site of practice and kind of learning what you like and what you don't like. We did do a lot of exploration on color theory, so some of this is there. This is actually a piece, this is a color, cardboard color swatches on the back. And then also some paint stretches. I stitched these together on the sewing machine before I glued them in here. And then I've got just some bug kind of highlights. One of the things I was very interested in besides traditional color theory is looking at other types of color theory. And so I was looking at a different way that we look at colors, to go from dark to light, and then a full range. And so there's I'm playing like a little bit of introduction here and homage to that. Again, some of this is just me outlining my statement. This is a cutout that I was doing in my high school classrooms that I was teaching with, so some of that is part of it. And I think I'm talking about sketchbooks are like a web that we build in the classroom, something like that. And then in this one is, you know, I talk about what is a sketchbook. I talked a little bit earlier about that last time. What is and what makes it not a sketchbook, and this concept of flow, meaning that when you enter your sketchbook, you fall into a sense of timelessness. You sort of lose track of where you are, and that is a flow state. That's a big part about the creative process for me, and so there's discussion here on that. One of the things I love doing in my sketchbooks, oh my gosh, this poor guy is getting beat up a little bit, is to create pop-ups or three-dimensional aspects. And this is a little, it's missing its little string here. This is a little idea of the idea that my sketchbook is like a portable studio, so that when I enter this, I enter back into that studio space. Kind of the idea that I open a page of the book and I sort of dive in, and I think of this space as being a studio. Poor thing, it's really kind of taken a beating here. Let me get my string here to tie it, because this is supposed to be tied shut. I'll do that real quick. This was a really fun little pop-up, and there's a lot of pop-ups that you can do to give yourself, and for my students, a sense of 3D. So I'm gonna put that there. This is just a little paper weaving I did here. One of the artists I looked at was Picasso, and so this is part of kind of an homage to that, and how he came up with his ideas. Again, same with Leonardo da Vinci. Here's another leaf here. I'm discussing in here some of the foundational artists that I looked at during my study. One of the things that goes along with flow is the sense of play, and the site of a sketchbook being a very playful place. These are little collage pieces of paste papers, decorated papers, and this is a nice little still life. I really like doing some of those kind of traditional artwork things. Wow, this one's getting kind of beat up too. Some of my pages are getting a little loose here. But this is about just the sense of a community. I like the idea that we're all rooting for each other. When students stand up to show their sketchbooks to each other, they got a very welcome audience in the bottom here. I did a lot of work with robots, and so I'm just using these as a background, not necessarily as connected to the text, but I love painting robots. Here's where I feel like this started to get a little bit messy. I mentioned the other day when I was looking at Vincent van Gogh. These are some images of Van Gogh's actual sketchbooks. And so again, I'm talking about some of the influences and some of the foundational artists that I looked at, but this page is really kind of quite messy. This is, I'm getting to the end of this book. This is one of the theorists that I was looking at here. So I've got a picture of, some of this I forget. But anyway, this is one of the theorists that I was basing this on. Some flies on here. And here at the end, my idea of balancing between the written and the image. I've got some tickets here, some chopstick instructions from going out to dinner sometime, and this is also a ticket. But this kind of finely sensed, tuned balance. This is painted, and this is my final page in this book. This is the schedule that I worked with my participants in my study. I showed you this chart the other day about the creative process and how I was really focusing on this part of the problem solving and incubation in this process. So this book, when I got this one all done, I was like, wow, that's kind of like all over the place. Again, back to that image with the fire hose. I think this is kind of the most appropriate image of the whole book. It's just me spouting off everything I know about sketchbooks at that point. And I realized that it was, I love a lot of things about this little book here, but a lot of what it felt like was it was overwhelming with color, overwhelming with thousands of techniques. And so for my next book that I'll show next week, I kind of pulled back and decided to sort of restructure and make things a little bit more limited in scope. When I talked about that idea of the difference between the right and left brain here, the structure versus the creativity, this book feels a little on this side, and the next book is going to be a little bit more structured. And so I find myself going back and forth between these, giving myself parameters to work within. And when I don't, this is what happens. I get like everything that runs across my brain comes out. A lot of it really fun, but some of it, not so great. Or where's my ugly page? The one that I really dislike is back this way somewhere. And, sometimes a little bit of structure and planning is a really good thing for me. I tend to do really well with rules. And so you'll see that in the one next week. But this was just my free-for-all kind of thoughts kind of running through my head. And I hope you enjoyed this. Again, this is, part of a dissertation. I have the entire dissertation around here somewhere. Maybe I'll show that next week, the written piece that accompanied these. But I love these books. They tell a lot. And again, what I hope you see in this one is enthusiasm and excitement for the project. If you enjoyed this tour, please put a like in, click on the likes, or if you haven't subscribed yet, I would love to have you subscribe. I hope to do 2 to 3 videos a week, some of them tours, some of them hands-on projects. I did a really lovely tiny book last week, so you can take a look at that as well. But I hope to see you back. Next week I'll do chapter 2, and we'll take a look at a little bit more of a structured book. Thanks for watching, and check out some of my other videos.